Good day everyone, my name is Anton. I'm going to discuss with you today the different functionalities built into BEE Navigator. Without going into how each functionality works, we're just going to provide a broad overview of the different functionalities that the program has, and so to give you as a potential user a better understanding of Navigator as a whole, and hopefully it'll encourage you to test it out on one of your clients and see what a great product it is and has become in assisting practitioners in getting to a scorecard and performing a BEE verification. So we're already logged in here. When you click on top, you will see that there are all these different tabs, and we're going to go into each of them just to give you an idea of what they consist of. So currently we've clicked on the summary tab, and you get to this page where basically this is where you can select the client that you want to work on the left here. So if you click on that client, it'll display that client's information in the middle of the screen here. On the very right, if data has already been captured, it will give you just a summary of the scores as they currently stand. But this is also where you can add a new exempt micro enterprise client or add a new generic or QSE client. So if you were to click on adding a new QSE or generic, you would get a screen looking like this. You would capture basic information about the client and press submit, and you have registered a new client on Navigator. And the same would apply if you would like to register a new EME on the system. The next tab on top here, once you've now selected your client, if you go to the contact page, this is what it looks like. And basically the contact page is a very powerful interaction tool with regards to this specific client engagement. So when I say interaction tool, what I mean is it keeps record of all interaction on the file, but also interaction with your staff and interaction with possibly the client if you so choose. So you can see here it keeps a log of all the different tasks and progress notes, etc. So if you look on the drop down here, you can either create a task, you can create a note, you can record payment received, and you can add a new contact or a new user to this client, and you can record or update the verification status. So what are these different actions? Basically a note. If I were to create a note, I would just log a note on the system. So it could be anything. Maybe you had a telephone call with a client and you would like to record that to make a note of that. Or maybe you've told somebody to do something and you want to make a note of that. A note is then typed here, so you can type your note there, and what you'll see on the right here is that you can actually CC this note to somebody's email inbox. In fact, to a maximum of 2 people's inbox. So you can either CC yourself. If you look here, you can see that all the users or contacts on this client, their email addresses are here. So you can CC yourself, or you can CC 1 or 2 other people, and they will receive an email with this note that you've created. For reporting purposes, all notes and tasks that you create, you can categorize them here. So you can say, this is a note about the client's account, or maybe you're still in the quotation process, so you can make a note about the costs or the contract, or we very often we make notes on the progress. So any progress on the client file, we make a note about that. You can make notes about support or service. So whatever you want. The purpose of these categories are for reporting purposes. So you can maybe once a week or once a month pull a report on all your notes. So maybe if you want to, every Friday you can pull a report and look at all the latest notes on all your clients. And in that way keep up to date with what's happening in your BEE division. Very powerful functionality. You can then, what's the difference between a note and a task? A task is a task created for someone else. So you can create a task to one of your staff members, or you can create a task to a client, to the client themselves, requesting them to do something, giving them a task to do, and you can also categorize your task. So for instance, you can tell the client, you can tell a staff member, please capture employment equity ASAP, and you then assign that task to the relevant person, and you can, if you wish, you can CC one or two other people as well. This reminder functionality is where you can set a reminder so that on a specific date in the future, Navigator will send you a reminder email. So tasks are very handy, and it logs it on the system here. When you receive a payment, you can type in the amount, whether it was the deposit or a final payment, the date received, and a note. And you can also CC one or two people. And you can add a new contact to this client or a new user to this client. Back here. And then very important is update verification status. This is a very handy tool for, especially for reporting purposes. You can once you've sent maybe a verification request to the client, you can update the status to that. You can, once you've sent a quotation, you can update that. Quotation signed, data pack sent to client or information that you require from the client, on-site visit scheduled, completed, or if the client doesn't accept your quote, you can even update it to a no sale. And I just want to demonstrate to you, let's say you've received back a signed quote from the client. You can CC one or two people if you like. If you press submit, it has logged that status. Yeah. So all notes, tasks, payments, verification, update statuses are all logged. So what's very nice about it is at any time you can log in and see what was the latest development on this file. And this is basically what we call the contact page. It's a built-in CRM tool in Navigator. We will come back to the working papers at the end of this video. If we go to business info, you'll see there's two drop-down menus, a general one and a financial one. If we go into general, this is where we capture the basic general information about the business. The company's name, various registration numbers, addresses, contact numbers, industry sector, business category. This is where you capture the authorized system user, so the user in your firm, or could also be the client if you wish that the client do their own capturing. Authorized business representative, who's the director or the person at the client responsible for this BEE process. If you like, you can capture the client's auditor's details here, and banking details, which we don't use, but you can also do that. Very important on this page is this bottom part where you decide, we have to indicate whether this is you have to select your sector charter here, and whether this is a QSE or a generic. What I just want to do, if you just bear with me, because as you can see, this is grayed out. We won't look at this now, but this is a drop-down menu containing all the sector codes as well as the standard codes. So you choose your relevant sector code here, and you choose whether the client is a QSE or generic. This is very important as it pulls through to the rest of the file. Then if you go to the financial page, this is what I call the backbone of a file, because it contains the information that the system needs to accurately calculate the scorecard. So here you have the financial year end of the client. The BEE measurement year is the 12 months ended, whatever it is. The BEE measurement date, so in other words, the date on which you're going to be measuring ownership and management control and employment equity if you're still under the old codes. Is this verification for tendering purposes, and what's the tender amount? This is just to give you an idea of the risk of this client. The financial information from finalized financial statements for the measurement year. So this is where you capture the client's turnover, net profit before and after tax, net asset value, procurement information for the measurement year. This is where all these figures you have to capture from the financial statements or the accounting records to get to the total measured procurement spend for BEE. It's very important that this figure is correct so that your preferential procurement score is calculated correctly. Then we have employment information for the measurement year. Did the entity pay skills development levies? Yes. Then this is where you capture those levies for the measurement year, and the system works out your leviable amount for you here. You also capture your total number of employees. And then if you're going to be working on enterprise development and socioeconomic development, this is where you would capture the last 5 years turnover and net profit after tax, so that the system can work out the annual net profit after tax margins in order to calculate the targets for those two elements. And at the very end here is where you capture your industry norm net profit margin as you would get it from Stats SA. So if you understand BEE, you'll agree with me that this page really is the backbone. If any of these figures are incorrect, your score under the various elements will be incorrect. So this is very important. And these two pages are under business info, general and financial. We then go to the capture data pages, and you'll see that there's a drop down with the 7 under the old codes. You have the 7 elements, BEE elements, and you can choose. Let's say we start with ownership. You can either click it on the drop down, or you'll see on top here you can jump to any of the elements at any time on top here. So this is where you would capture ownership, and you have individual shareholders of the measured entity and institutional shareholders of the measured entity. As you capture these fields, it creates a little ownership tree on the left here for you. If there are institutional shareholders, you would double click on that. It'll open up a similar page where once again you capture institutional and individual shareholders until you get to a stage where you're only left with one or more individual shareholders. Okay. If we go back here, this is where you would put, if there are encumbered debt, you would put the date here on which the first BEE deal was done. If there are more complicated ownership structures involved, like shares held by state, mandated investments, equity instruments carrying preference rights, options, sale or loss of shares, or associated enterprises, any of those more complicated ownership structures, you would select that here, and it would open a specific capture field to calculate those scores accurately. So if there were, let's open all of them and you'll see what I mean. You would have very specific data required to be captured to work out the correct ownership scores. Then under all the elements, you'll see that it gives you a data summary area. So this is for informational purposes. It then gives you your scorecard. So this is the ownership scorecard with the weighting points, the targets, the actual result, the target adjustment if necessary, and then your scores with your total score. And at the very end, and you'll see this under all the elements, it gives you a score summary under all your BEE elements. So this is just the ownership scorecard, and there's the total ownership score, but it gives you under all the elements here, and it also gives you a total score. So ownership, very Navigator is probably the most powerful tool when it comes to accurately calculating ownership. We then go to management, which is management control, and this is where you capture your management control data, data summary, management scorecard, and the total score summary is at the bottom. Employment equity, the same basically. This is where you capture your employees' details. You've got a data summary, scorecard at the bottom, and your scores. Skills development. This is where you capture those that have been trained details, training costs, pro rata salaries, etc. if they were learnerships. Some key measurement principles. You say yes or no there, whether they comply with CETA requirements and Skills Development Act and so forth. Gives you a data summary. It gives you the element results at the bottom here, the skills scorecard. Preferential procurement. This is where you capture the details from the compliant suppliers BEE certificates, and of course the expenditure excluding VAT for the measurement here. Again, data summary where it splits it up for you between the different spend with the different types of suppliers, and got your scorecard and scores at the bottom. Enterprise development, as you perhaps know, there are various types of enterprise development, and you have to see what type you're dealing with, and then you select, you show to open up a data capture box. So in this case we've selected grant contributions, loans, time cost, shorter payment periods, and for each of those there's a data capture field that needs to be completed. For grants, for loans, time of employees, shorter payments, and if you're working under enterprise and socioeconomic development, you're working with the cumulative method, you would select here. This is where you would select your inception date. Again, data summary with your results at the bottom here. Socioeconomic development, similar, very similar. Different data capture pages or blocks. Choose your inception date, summary, and results. So what makes Navigator different to some similar products on the market is that it's not an Excel based product where manipulation is a possibility and where a lot of inputs by the user is still a possibility. It's a data capture. You capture the correct data in the fields, and the program works out the scores, and scores can't be manipulated in any way. So that was the data capture. That's obviously very important because that's where the scores are calculated. If you look here, there's a scorecard tab where it gives you, for this client, it gives you just a summary and it works out the value adding supplier status automatically here. Under the new codes, that'll be the empowering supplier status, and it gives you your BEE level. You can also, this is a summary, you can also look at the detailed scorecard, which will look like this. Okay. Now, we said we were going to go back to working papers at the end. So for BEE approved auditors, this is what makes Navigator unique. It's the fact that it has SASSI 3502 compliant working papers. Looking at planning, fieldwork, final considerations, and you can also print your working papers at the end. So planning addresses engagement acceptance, understanding and assessing the client, your planning memo, and materiality. Fieldwork, there are fieldwork pages for each of the 7 elements. Final considerations, based on the SASSI addresses using third parties, getting written representations, looking at subsequent events, are your documentation in order, did you select a quality control review, what's your conclusion, and the BEE certificate being issued at the end. So if we look at planning, let's go to the planning memo. Planning memo would look like this. These are your working papers. So you have the client, measurement date, verification. This is the planning memorandum working paper. All working papers have a sign off by a preparer and a reviewer on top. So you would record this is when the planning meeting took place. These were the members, their roles, and then you have verification procedures where you, similar to caseware, those that know caseware, this is where you would say yes, no, or not applicable to these procedures relating to the planning memorandum. We would go into detail in this in future videos. You can attach, at certain questions, you can attach PDF documentation. This is where you look at your assertions. Or these are the elements that are going to be worked on. Sorry, the assertions come later. You've got certain blocks where you can write larger descriptions. Down here, it'll work out your fee budget automatically for you. What's nice is that at the end of every working paper, you have a last question where you can actually upload as much additional documentation as you like. There's a place for additional comments, and then an element conclusion. So there's a conclusion under each working paper. There's a conclusion that you select here. So the planning working papers, basically they look like that. If we look at fieldwork working papers, let's go to referential procurement as an example. You would have a lead schedule. This is now fieldwork for each of the elements. So you would have a lead schedule with the prior year and the current year figures and a variance, so that you can use this as a type of analytical review, and the auditor puts in his comments here. There are no sample supporting documentation. Let me just use another element where we have some sample supporting documentation. Yes, so I've now gone to employment equity fieldwork working paper. You've got your lead schedule, which is basically the scorecard with the prior and current year figure scores. And then you can sample, you can go back to the data capture pages. So if I were to go back to the data capture pages, employment equity, you can see here that I've sampled 1, 2, 3. There's a little column on the right where you sample the items that you would like to test further. So we've sampled Smith, we've sampled Anderson, and we've sampled Zulu. When you sample them here, it automatically pulls them through to your working papers, employment equity, and here we have Smith, Anderson and Zulu. That line item has been pulled through here, and now this is where the power of Navigator comes in terms of verification. You can now go and say Documents, Review, and it opens up a block where you can either scan and upload supporting documentation into Navigator, or you can review it offline. So you can look at the documentation either where it's saved on your server, or maybe you've taken your laptop to the client and you've checked it out there, and you can tick here that yes, it's been prepared offline by maybe a junior clerk, and it's been reviewed offline by a more senior person. And it automatically logs that user's name and the date that it's been reviewed here. Okay, just wanted to see. So in here we've got an example of where the contract and the payslip have been uploaded. So here's the contract. When you want to upload something, when you upload something, there's a choose file button here, so you can pardon me, you can upload the scanned document. And just to show you what it looks like, takes you to wherever you can upload it. When you upload it, it logs it or stores it down here. So for instance, this has been uploaded. So this is not a contract, but just an example document that we can upload it here. And then every document that's uploaded and then reviewed is signed off by a preparer and a reviewer on top here with the date. And similar to caseware, those dates can be amended for practical purposes, as auditors would know. So it'll then indicate that that line item has been properly reviewed here. You can also go and select additional supporting documentation. So under each element there are some other basic documentation that one would require. You can select it here, and you can also go and review it, upload it, or prepare it offline. And then under each of the 7 elements you have verification procedures based on the SASE. So you would work through these verification procedures by answering these questions yes or no. There's a number of them, additional comments, and an element conclusion. Then, if we go to final considerations, let's go to subsequent events. 7 procedures, yes, no, signed off by a preparer and a reviewer, additional comments if you want, and a conclusion. Go to the assurance conclusion one, very similar. You can see the layout of the working papers are all very similar. Then we go to the BEE certificate, and here you can go and now either issue your certificate using Navigator, or you can do your own Word certificate and upload it into Navigator. So if you want to go the first option, you can just enter your certificate number here, the date of issue. It automatically pulls through the level, the black ownership, the name of the auditor issuing it, professional body of that auditor, the practitioner's name, registration number. You complete this block and it generates a certificate. You see I haven't completed it now, but it generates a certificate that you can then paste it into a Word document or print on your letterhead. Or you can import your PDF certificate and upload it and save it on the system. And it also has the scorecard here. detailed scorecard, and what we call a data sheet, which is almost like a snapshot summary of some of the data that you've captured. And then you can print your working papers by going here and selecting exactly which working papers. Obviously, you would want to print all your working papers. And what it does is it prints it in an HTML format like this, which you can save as a PDF file on your server, even though all the data is also on Navigator's server. So when you have an herb inspection, you can go and print out the file and put it in a hard copy file for them to look at. So what I also just want to show you, this Documents tab, all the sampled items, all the items that the auditor have sampled, are also then populated under Documents here, so that a client or a consultant or somebody else can log in. They don't see the working papers functionality because they're not BEE auditors, but they see what have been sampled and they can go and upload the supporting documentation if you want to make use of such a process. There's also the admin where you can do a year-end rollover. You can print and save data sheets. You can look at your user admin, and you can pull reports based on those categories that we discussed at the beginning of this video. And there's a help function and logout. So hopefully this broad high-level overview of BEE Navigator has been helpful in just giving you a better understanding of the look and feel of Navigator, and hopefully assisting you in your decision to use it as your preferred BEE verification tool, because at the end of the day we want to get to accurate scores that reflect the true status of a client, but we also want a file that will pass an ERBO review. So thank you very much for listening to this, and please be on the lookout on our website for further video tutorials.